Hello and welcome to session 3 of the EmblemHealth Care for the Family Caregiver video series. I'm Greg Johnson. I'm the creator and director of EmblemHealth's Care for the Family Caregiver initiative. EmblemHealth is a major health corporation located here in New York City. And for over a decade, it's been my privilege and honor to direct the Care for the Family Caregiver program. Family caregivers, the unpaid backbone of the healthcare system. We've talked about that in some of our earlier sessions, and I quickly remind you of that. Healthcare is like a three-legged stool. It's made up of 3 legs. 1, the care recipient, someone who's ill. The second, the professional caregivers, all the doctors, the nurses, all the paid personnel. But the third and most important leg is you, the family caregiver. Now, in our second series, we talked about that word family. We kind of flip it off, but we found out that there are many faces to family. Family of origin, family of choice. And if you haven't listened to that tape, I urge you to do it. It may give you some new ideas. It'll also give you some resources as to where do I go to get help? Who can walk with me so that you are not alone? That's our series. And by the very fact that we're having this conversation, and I'm so glad to meet you. I'm so glad to talk with you and share. Because this is not just academic for me. I, too, am a family caregiver. In this series, in this show, we're going to be talking about the word caregiver. We've talked of family. Now we're going to talk about the caregiver. We've said a family caregiver is someone who shows up and stays to help. But caregivers have many, many faces. There are many different types of caregivers, and that was something I had to learn. When I was first invited to create this department and this program, I must admit that I was thinking only of my grandparents, who had been long dead and were, of course, seniors. The truth is, now I'm a senior. I have been cared for, but I'm also a caregiver. You see, with all the wonderful things that are happening in medicine and science, and we honor that and we respect that, life is much longer. It used to be that the family caregiver was traditionally thought of as someone 50 or 60, caring for people 70 and 80. Well, now, the caregivers are very, very often 70 and 80, caring for people 90 and 100 plus. And that's only going to continue. So yes, one face of family caregiving is the senior. People like me caring for other seniors. People like you caring for seniors. That's one face, but it's only one face. A second face of family caregiving involves seniors, but it's in the reverse order. It's grandparents, aunties, uncles, seniors caring for grandchildren. Now, the sociological name for that is kinship. We call that kinship because it's not always grandma and grandpa. Kinship really got its start with recognition here in New York City, in the Bronx, by a church-based organization. An organization that in 2012 is celebrating its 50th anniversary. Presbyterian Senior Services has been a world leader in the kinship movement. Many years ago, they took a plot of land and they built a 50-unit apartment building specifically for kinship, grandparents raising grandchildren. This has been duplicated, it has been replicated, it has been studied, and they have been great advocates for this all over the world. This year I spoke again in Singapore for the International Longevity Center there. And of course, one of the first questions was, did I know of a place called the Bronx? And I said, yes, and you must be a Presbyterian asking me about Presbyterian Senior Services. And I was right on both accounts. Their work is wonderful, and if you've not heard about it, I urge you to take a look. Your community might very well find value in just such a situation, and they're ready to help. In addition to kinship, and I just am looking at the iPad here because I don't want to leave anything out. Going to the opposite end of the scale, we've talked about the seniors, also children caregivers. There was an excellent study done in Washington by the National Alliance of Caregiving in association with very generous patrons who helped them on that study. The National Alliance of Caregiving was founded by Gail Gibson Hunt, one of the great leaders of the family caregiving advocacy, and she is a great friend, and this report that they did was mind-boggling on children 8 to 18 who every single day do something to help some other person with the issues of family caregiving, whether it's the activities of daily living, you all know the ADLs and the IADLs, all those fancy terms, helping people do the things that people need to do. Whether it's helping them to walk, to cross streets, to serve them a meal, to push the wheelchair. But also, what about the computer? Children are wonderful at Googling. They can do a lot of research to help you get more information, and knowledge is power. So there's a great role that children can play, as well as you're having that wonderful opportunity of teaching these children the joy of living, the golden rule, by being a family caregiver. Now also, we have persons with chronic conditions. Chronic conditions knows no age, and therefore, family caregiving. Disease specific. There are many organizations, particularly the Alzheimer's Association, the Heart Association, that have wonderful support programs for family caregivers because they realize the importance of the family caregiver in the work they're doing. Long-distance caregiving. Oh yes, that's a popular one because people live farther and farther from each other, but with technology we can be right together. Take the iPad. We can, what's that word? Skype. I thought I'd get that. We can Skype. We can talk to each other. And again, no, we're not alone. But long-distance caregiving has its challenges as well because we're not right on site. So we need to respect the member of our family who is the primary caregiver. We need to defer to that person who is physically with the person being cared for. We also have, and I don't want to forget any of these, that's why I keep looking, we have a very important group of people, and I'm pleased to say EmblemHealth, along with the New York City Family Caregiver Coalition, has been leading the charge in trying to get resources to the caregivers of our wonderful veterans. It's our opportunity to serve those who have so valiantly served us. Why caregiving? Well, there are two reasons, and this is why we have taken such an active interest in this area. As we began looking at the veterans, looking at their return and their care, we realized that as persons who professionally deal with the world of family caregiving, there were two areas in which we had resources that could indeed be valuable to them. Number one, the chronic conditions. Sadly, truly sadly, the wounds of today's wars are chronic conditions. That means they're going to be ongoing. And therefore, the work that has been done for family caregivers in the realm of chronic conditions is equally vital and valuable to family caregivers of veterans. And the second area, we go back to kinship. This is what has occurred. The partners, the husbands and wives, are totally involved in the care for the veteran. So who steps up to the plate with the grandchildren? Yes, the grandparents, the aunties, the uncles, and kinship once again. Yes, there are many faces to family caregivers. As Rosalind Carter said, and said so well, in life there are really only 4 types of people. There are those of us who are family caregivers today. I'm one, and I know many of you are. There are those of us who have been family caregivers. There are those of us who will be family caregivers. And as a multiple stroke survivor, I can attest to this. There are many of us who will be cared for. Wherever you are in that spectrum, and you may be in more than one place, honor, consider, and name the different caregiving roles that you are playing. Because in doing that, you're doing the most important thing that a family caregiver can do for themselves and the person they're caring for, is you can name and identify who you are. I am a family caregiver. I'm not only the husband, the wife, the grandparent, the child, the aunt, the uncle, whatever other sociological relationship. I am a family caregiver. And I need to remember that before I can care for them, before I can care for you, I've got to care for myself. Because I can't give away what I don't have. If I'm falling apart emotionally, physically, and spiritually, I can't help. This has been the message of EmblemHealth since the day we began this program. We wanted people to be aware, to accept, and to take action. And most of all, we wanted to keep caregivers family caregivers. We don't want to create more care recipients. Wherever you are in this journey, please remember, there is help, there is support. On behalf of so many, I say thank you. And please remember, you are not alone.